They hate when you elevate. They stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate. Elevate, yeah. They hate when you elevate. Elevate. They hate when you elevate, yeah. I had to elevate. I'm way too fly, yeah, I'm feeling myself. Ain't no chance I'm coming down, no. Got a soul view to myself, yeah. Why would I give it up? Why do they wanna come take my place? I work too hard for it, don't need a...
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Salute to everybody in the building, man. What a weekend of boxing. Heading into another great weekend of boxing, man. I just came off of work not too long ago. Got me my little meal in. You know how it is. So much that's going on tomorrow morning. I'm not really going to be here. I'm traveling tomorrow, so heading to the city, right? Headed in the city to go check out this Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teofimo extravaganza. But I had to build with my people, right? And I didn't even have an opportunity or a chance yet to build on this crazy card this weekend that just passed, right? Well, not the card necessarily. Yeah, the card, man, right? Decent card, but the main event definitely was a spectacle, as we've come to become accustomed to, right? We've come to be accustomed to Turki Al-Sheikh making these spectacles, and it was one for the ages on Saturday evening. In my opinion, exceeded all my expectations, right? Exceeded all my personal expectations of what I thought it was going to be. Wanted to put that into perspective, talk about that for sure. Build on news that has come out in recent hours or in the past few days. We've got a heavyweight title on July 19th, undisputed, going to be on the line as Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois have officially made it official. Face-offs in the books. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about Joseph Parker. What's next for him? As the WBO is also mandatoried him as the guy who's going to be next in line to challenge. Does he wait? Does he get a stay busy fight? In the meantime, we definitely got to talk about the Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero extravaganza, Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez, obviously, Arnold Barbosa, Teofimo Lopez. We've got to talk about that a little bit. What else we got going on here? Am I missing some things here? I'm sure there's so many different things going on. I'm probably missing some of it, right? But we're gonna try to cover as much of it as we can, man. Salute to everybody who's in the building, man. Quick little roll call. I know we stacking in slow, but we coming in for sure. I know there's a lot of other platforms right now doing their thing. So I appreciate you being here. You know what I mean? I appreciate you being here. So we can build on this boxing talk. Shout out to Fly Frequency in the building, my Ock right there. That's my brother from another mother right there. Eastside Easy. Salute to you, King. So happy you in the building. Clay giving us a nighttime live. Oh, snap, though. We had to wait till the AM. Nah, man, we're going to get it in tonight. Joseph Johnson, salute to you, King. Salute. I ain't your Uncle Joseph. You about damn near my age, I think. I might be a little older than you, right? Maybe I am a little older. Maybe. How about Big Bro? Uncle, got me feeling. I know the grades and everything, but come on, man. Salute to SOB TV in the building as well. RC, what a damn fight. You're damn right. What a damn fight indeed, man. Fight Sports Talk. Oh, we came in at a good time for you, right? Fight Sports. You got to come up a little bit later and let me know what that weather looking like in New Zealand, man. You know, I always got to start off by asking you that. And we got the Brooklyn boy in the building, man. That Eubank versus Benn fight was an action-packed fight, 100%. The lead-up, Eubank Senior, weight drama, egg slap, 12-round brawl. They're going to make a movie about this one day. I think it's movie-worthy. I definitely think thank you, Joe. Thank you, man. Now, I agree with you, Brooke. Man, listen, man, that one was, and once again, you know, you guys know, you know, the beginning of this whole entire, this whole channel right here, this whole platform was built off of the energy that Turkey was bringing to the space, right? It was a breath of fresh air, some optimism on what this man could do, before he actually did it, right? Just understanding the access he had to the resources he had access to, knowing what he could do, not knowing if he would do it, because there was always a little bit of leeriness in the air, right? We had to kind of, pay attention to what was happening, make sure that it wasn't just a hype job. But I think over time, as time has passed, with Turkey's moves, with the purchase of Ring Magazine, with the coordinating of undisputed heavyweight, light heavyweight titles, the attempts to put out some of the biggest fights and events being the spectacles that they've become, bringing the promoters together, right? Bringing the promoters to work with each other, erasing the across the street politics that we were all having to deal with in the sport. Slowly but surely, I believe he's starting to win over the boxing fans. Boxers are starting to become more intrigued and more interested of working with him. Everybody's just starting to see more of the advantages. There's still going to be questions out there, of course. When you always got to question the intentions in the agenda of a billionaire, right? Or at least somebody controlling the budget of a billionaire. You never know what's going to happen, right? And there's no secret at all as far as their intentions on putting Saudi Arabia on top of the map as far as being one of the primary best locations for the biggest sporting events in the world. That comes with the territory, right? Why wouldn't they come with their own incentives, their own intentional moves to put their country on the map? That's natural, but at no cost to the boxing fans, right? Maybe at some cost to the promoters, maybe, I don't know, maybe even the fighters who want to perform stateside, but to the fans, not at our cost, man, to our benefit, right? To our benefit. So it is what it is, man. So we're going to talk about the event, man. Eubanks versus Benn exceeded expectations. What an event it turned out to be. Shootout. And as I seen somebody state earlier, when you look at from this, the way this fight was put together from the beginning, all the way going back to the story of the actual performance enhancement drugs getting in the way of the first fight actually coming together, and then bringing it full circle to 3 years later, here we are. Eubanks Benn, made by Turki Al-Sheikh, and weight was going to be an issue in this fight, as Eubanks had to stick to a rehydration clause. Conor Benn having to basically tune out or try to tune out. And did he tune out? We'll talk about that as well. All of the pushback he was getting for being a drug cheat. What was going to happen during the fight? Chris Eubank Senior being completely against the fight from happening, right, guys? I mean, he was, and listen, we're going to talk about that as well, because Chris Eubank Senior might have had a point. He might have had a point. Matt, let me change my words. He definitely did have a point, being that his son did have an issue with the weight cut. We saw the extreme measures Chris Eubank Jr. was going to make the actual weight in this fight, which gives even more credibility to Chris Eubank Jr. for being able to weather through that storm. We saw him fading away in the mid to later rounds, trying to keep up with the pace that Conor Benn was putting on him in an 18-foot ring. It was shrunk down from a 22-foot to an 18-foot ring, which gave him even less space to move around in, able to regulate, establish that jab, get that respect, and ultimately in the latter rounds, scrap Conor Benn, right? Literally scrapped him, squabbled the boy up, squabbled with him, as Conor Benn was connecting with shots as well. And I would say the scorecards didn't really tell the story accurately of what we saw in that fight. Right now, I think the scorecards were good scorecards. Don't get me twisted or misunderstand me. Good scoring, as Chris Eubanks did win at least 8 of those rounds out of those 12 rounds, but competitive rounds and a certain imminent danger that always seemed to be there during the whole entire fight, as we saw Chris Eubanks on a few occasions get hurt, lose his legs. We saw his legs leave him in the fight, and we saw Conor Benn ultimately unable to close the show. But still, you stayed at the edge of your seat because you didn't know what Conor Benn would muster up. You didn't know which shot it would be. There were times when Chris Eubank literally held it together by seeing strings, right, from falling, as I believe his father's presence played the biggest role in the heart that he showed that night, right? And the will he showed to survive, and not only survive, but to win. It was something for the ages to see. And it's what boxing is all about. Granted, both these guys were pedestrian coming into the ring, right? Chris Eubank not really accomplishing anything significant in his career. Probably the biggest thing he ever accomplished was winning an IBO title, who a lot of people don't even acknowledge that sanctioning body. And Conor Benn really didn't have an opportunity to really accomplish anything, as he was suspended for the past 3 years, was just going to make his biggest move fighting Chris Eubank 3 years ago and gotten away with that by allowing performance enhancement drugs to get into his system. So both these guys, no belt on the line, just legacy, just blood feud legacy. And it delivered. It gave the boxing fans of the world who watched that fight 65,000+ people inside of a stadium to watch that fight, and nobody left feeling shorted or like they spent too much money or ripped off. It sold, right? It delivered. It delivered, man. What we got going on in here, man? Yo, what up, bro? Salute here for boxing. What's good with you, boy? What's good, family? Brooklyn Boy says Eubank fined $500,000 for missed weight. Is super diabolical. 100%, right? Well, we know what that is, right? We know the politics of the British Board of Boxing Control benefiting from that. They already had fined him earlier that year for the $100,000, or earlier in the buildup of the fight for that $100,000 for the egging, right? The slap with the egg. And then of course they found a way to make some more money. So $500,000 right out of his pocket. But listen, man, he got a $10 million purse. We ain't gonna spend it with him. So I ain't mad, but I do recognize the diabolical nature of the petty move of the British Board of Boxing Control, whatever have you. Cool Breeze, salute, man. Said got my $25 worth. That's a fact. $25 well spent. We've spent a lot more for a lot less, right? We've spent a lot more for a lot less. So it is what it is, man. But regardless, what a fight. We saw Anthony Yardy. Anthony Yard, I got to talk about that as well. I mean, Anthony Yard did walk away with a win. He did beat Arthur Linden, or Linden Arthur. Am I right? Is it Arthur Linden? Arthur Linden? Yeah, Arthur Linden, right? He beat him. No, Linden Arthur, right? Somebody help me. I don't know. It is what it is. You know who I'm talking about. The fight, I believe in and agree with the decision, but is Anthony Yard ready for the top level light heavyweights in the game? And definitely, I'm talking about the Caleb Smiths, the David Benavidez's. I mean, is this guy ready to be in that conversation? I don't know. Based on that performance. Granted, I'll give Anthony Yard the benefit of the doubt that he was out of the ring for a while. There's some ring rust there. Him getting his bearings together on how he's going to move forward will let him slide. Adam McKenna had a great fight. Lyndon Arthur. Okay, salute, Brooklyn Boy. Thank you. Adam McKenna had a great fight against Liam Smith. In my opinion, I thought that fight right there was probably the best. Now, let me not say that. That would be lying. But I was really impressed with Adam McKenna's performance, man. His shot placement, his foot movement, just his overall IQ, and the way he's able to dominate every round against Liam Smith and put him down ultimately with a well-placed body shot. Something to be celebrated. Definitely interested in seeing what he does in the middleweight division, see what kind of opportunities are going to open up for him, right? RC says throw him in with Morrell. I like that, RC. Look, Anthony Yard at the end of the day is 33 years old. He don't got a lot of warm-up fights in front of him to get done. He has to get to it. If he's going to make something happen, it has to happen soon for him. Maybe not next, but soon. So listen, man, he's ultimately going to have to be tested. We'll have to see what his next move is. I know David Morrell has a fight lined up coming up soon as well, where he'll get an opportunity to prove his worth. We'll see what David Morrell does, and then maybe later on down the line, we'll see David Morrell and Anthony Yardy put it together, or maybe a David Morrell and a Joshua Buatsi. Who knows, right? Who knows what position he might put him in? We got to check that out as well. Throw him in there, Morrell, no doubt. Man, where do I start with this Eubank situation, man? Do we start at the build-up? Let's start with Senior, right? Let's start with Eubank Senior. Eubank Senior, and shout out to my co-host Ray Davis. Ray really, Ray was just about there, right? He didn't get it all the way right on the nail, but he got real close to it, right? When he pretty much figured that Chris Eubank Sr. was going to be part of this no matter what, right? That no matter what was going on in between Chris Eubank Jr. and Senior and whatever, he was saying on that media campaign, that there should be an expectation to see Senior that night, that Senior was going to be part of this event. I don't think it was premeditated. One could argue that they could see it that way, had a very WWE energy to it. I don't think it was so much premeditated. And I don't think it matters at this point whether or not it was premeditated. I think the impact was felt nonetheless, right? Nonetheless, there was an impact. Chris Eubank Sr. showing up in the way he did, shaking up that stadium, literally, in my opinion, took the energy away from the fighters. Dare I say it brought the energy to the Eubank side, but he literally took everything from the event, which was, there's a narcissist energy about that, right? With Senior, Senior really having a hard time staying away from the lights, from the camera, from the attention, having a hard time doing that. Hindsight doesn't shock me that he showed up the way he did. Right? Really doesn't shock me the way he showed up. And regardless, really infuse a certain energy, put an edge to the fight, an edge to the event that had the whole stadium. Probably was the move that had the stadium move to the edge of their seats at that point. As I was shocked to really see how he rocked the stadium out, right? Everybody knew that. It just seemed like Chris Eubank Sr. was the missing piece, right? He was the missing piece. Salute to the boxing expert in the building. Salute Mr. Big Play in the building. Said, good evening, boxing family. It's fight week. 100%. We definitely going to talk about fight week as well. But it seemed like Senior's presence was sort of a missing piece, clearly, right? That was probably one of the biggest fears of the event for the fans in England, who really understood the historical weight, that the value that fight had, really looking to see Senior in the building and questioning whether he'd be there or not. And a lot of people, most people probably thinking he's not going to be there, being that he was quoted saying he would never be in his corner of his son, that his son was a disgrace, that the event was a shambles, that it was a circus, that it was WWE, that the British Board of Boxing Control was supposed to get in the way of this fight happening. Weight classes for a reason, right? All those things, all the above. He stated all of the above. But ultimately, when it was all said and done, his need and want for that spotlight, he wasn't going to allow 65,000 plus people to be in a building with an event with his name on it, his son's name, his name that he's given his son, a junior to him. He was going to allow that to pass by and not get a piece of that, get that old feeling back, hear that Tina Turner song playing in the background. Simply the best. He wasn't going to miss an opportunity to do that, to be part of that, to stand on that stage as he did, standing next to his son with the live band playing behind him, Tina Turner playing on the background, the whole stadium flipping out as everybody has that nostalgia feeling, people who were there back in 1990, 91, whenever that was, when that event happened. And the people who were there got to go back in history, go back down memory lane and experience it. And the people who weren't there had the older people able to tell them, you see what I'm saying? They got to live that moment. For the people who only saw the fight on replay, who saw the event in replay and wonder what it would have been like to be in a building with 50,000+ people screaming for this fighting event in a fight that had delivered. Well, Chris Eubank Sr. was not going to pass up on an opportunity to be part of that, right? And he ended up being there. And when he showed up, how were the Benns going to react? Connor and Nigel, as they were saying they wanted to see him there, but you had to ask yourself, how much did they really want him to be there? Did they count on him not being there? Was that part of the edge they thought they had over Chris Eubank Jr. to know that the father wasn't going to be there, to know that he was going to have to struggle, and he knew he was going to have to make this weight cut by himself, and that he was going to have to make this walk out to the ring by himself, and he was going to have to come back to the corner, and he wasn't going to get the opportunity to look back over his shoulder and see his father there supporting him, pushing him, giving him that look, go get him, son. They knew he wasn't going to be there. But that all changed up when Senior popped up, And I think another significant part of the event was watching Conor Benn and Nigel Benn process that, right? They had to process that on the camera, watch him on the camera, walk into the building and watch the whole building erupt, knowing that just 30 minutes prior to that, maybe an hour to 30 minutes prior to that, they walked into the building and the building booed them. They booed them as if they were the villains. Keep in mind, Conor Benn was the pride and joy of the UK 3 years ago. He was the golden boy of the UK 3 years ago. Everybody loved him. And now he's the butt of the joke. And on top of that, Senior comes out the back of a Rolls Royce and completely takes the whole arena by storm. You saw the process as Conor Benn was getting ready and he was in his underwear and Nigel Benn was sitting there and they had the most serious, can I say concerned? I feel comfortable saying concerned, right? They were concerned about Chris Eubank. When you saw that look they looked at in the camera, you saw concern. And I thought that was profound, because why would you be concerned? What was there to be concerned about? You said you wanted the father to be there. You said that he was part of the event. The event felt incomplete without the father being there. The father is there. Well, why did you look so concerned? I think as the night played on, we got to kind of see what the concern was about, right? We got to understanding what the actual concern was really about. Made sense by the end of the night. Hindsight showed what the concern was about, right? As they're getting ready and Chris Eubank meets with his father and they're making their way to the locker room, and Conor Benn is trying to get refocused because they've been distracted. They've been derailed a little bit by this last minute surprise, and they're getting ready for this fight. Conor Benn had to be even doubling down on his emotions that he already had going into the fight. As Conor Benn once said, he wears his emotion on his sleeves. He wears his emotion on his sleeve, so he's already thinking about the egg slap. He's thinking about the disrespect to his father. He's thinking about the disrespect that him and Chris Eubank has had for each other since the beginning of time. He's thinking about all the PED, not allegations, but actual what was found in his system, but we can say allegations that he has to deal with. All the naysayers who were saying he was biting off more than he can chew, that he accomplished nothing for real in boxing, that the pedigree was going to be two separate pedigrees, that at least Chris Eubanks was somebody in his later age, but had the experience, was in different conversations than Conor Benn, who was literally getting a second chance at his career. Yeah, it was diabolical. What a story. What a great night. The night was starting to be a great night. And Conor Benn gets to make his way to his ring and get to hear that dangerous. I'm dangerous. That had to be good. Reminiscent, wearing the same clothes that his father wore, as his father is walking behind him confidently, and they get into the ring. And then once again, Chris Eubank Jr. and Senior steal the show. They steal the show. It was almost destined to be Chris Eubank's night. The energy was just there. Simply the best. I never knew I liked that song that much, I'll be honest with you. It was always a cool song, right? Tina Turner, rest in peace. Always a cool song, but they put a different twist on that thing, man. They put a different angle on it. And ultimately, Chris Eubank Jr. making his way to the ring, playing that Dr. Dre, that Dre Day. So fitting. Knowing that Chris Eubank had to go through hell, damn near, literally, to make that weight. Knowing that he was drinking water even while in the back room, coming out to make his way out for his entrance, and even in the ring, he had to drink water. That man was not hydrated. He was depleted off rip. He was depleted. But he made it into the ring that night and had a determination like I don't think I've ever seen Chris Eubank have before. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever seen Chris Eubank that focused and determined, ever. The energy was felt from the beginning. Before that first bell rang, the energy was felt. So let's get into the fight, right? So both fighters clearly motivated at this point. Chris Eubank Jr., his last bit of motivation, the one bit of motivation he might have been missing, he got it all together as his father made his way to the ring with him. What were we expecting going into the fight? Me personally, I understood that Chris Eubank Jr. was coming in on a very extreme weight cut. Watching him actually put videos out there of him laying under plastic and being wrapped in hundreds of towels and sitting in a sauna and, you know, torturing himself just to make that weight. I thought that Conor Benn's game plan was going to be a game plan built around taking advantage of that, right? I thought Conor Benn's game plan was going to be a game plan built around taking advantage of Chris Eubank's conditioning, testing his body, if you want me to make it even more layman, testing his body, testing his conditioning, pushing the pace, not allowing Chris Eubank to be comfortable and control the pace. And Conor exposed himself, in my opinion, in this fight in a way that if you had a question about it, the question was answered. And the question was, how IQ-wise, on a cerebral level, where was Conor Benn going to be in this fight? Being that we knew that Conor Benn was going to be the fighter in this fight, and Chris Eubank was poised to be the boxer in this fight. He was poised to be the boxer, right? Salute to Bacon and Eggs in the building. Says, let me see what Bacon and Eggs got to say here. Put a little thing. Bacon and Eggs said it was a classic fight for the ages. I don't think there's a need for a rematch. Both put on A-grade performance for the boxing world. Yeah, I agree. And we're going to talk about that as well, as far as what's next for these guys, rematches, things of that nature. We're going to talk about all of that. Bear me one moment. We're going to talk about that as well, right? What's next for these guys? But Conor Benn, really, as much of a fight as he put up in this fight and as competitive as it was, and it was competitive, right? Like I said, the scorecard really didn't highlight or really show what we watched. If we watched the fight live, what was happening in that ring, although we saw Chris Eubank running away with some rounds, doing a great job at keeping his energy and delivering it as needed, not over exerting himself, understanding that he had to preserve his energy. He made a point to work very well in the beginning of the round, control the pace of the round, but also make sure that the last 30 seconds of the round had him letting his hands go and literally taking those rounds, right? Conor Benn really just, I mean, let's just keep it simple. Hardly any jab, no body campaign. He was headhunting the whole time. He was finding some success in spurts, finding some success connecting with some big shots, some of those shots hurting Chris Eubanks, but for the most part was never able to adjust, as Chris Eubanks was able to control the fight with that jab. The jab was the star of the show for Chris Eubanks, right? The jab was definitely the star of the show. Able to control Conor Benn, keep him at bay as Conor Benn started to resort to leaping forward, jumping forward with these hooks, flailing these hooks, hoping that they'd catch him. Some feints he would do these crazy rollouts where he'd make a real athletic move and roll out, roll in, but he'd roll right back out and step back out. So it was almost like he was using all that movement as some sort of like real complicated feint that ended up being a whole nothing burger, wasting a lot of energy and movement in there. I would assume trying to bait Chris Eubank into becoming offensive so that maybe Chris Eubank might cross his space or help him turn the fight mid-range. But Chris Eubank just did a great job at letting that jab go. Let me see here. Khalil World says, quick question. What day is the Charlo fight? What is that, July 12th or 19th? 12th? I think it's the 12th, right? That's a Caleb Plant card, right? Khalil, I hope. I'm thinking something like that. But yeah, as I was saying, I digress. Chris Eubank doing a great job of controlling with that jab and winning and boxing Conor Benn's head off. And Conor Benn just showing that he was going to come up short in that area. He wasn't able to adjust. And once again, I'm going to have to shout out my co-host, Ray Davis. As Ray said, he thought that he expected an emotional Conor Benn to come in the ring. A Conor Benn who wasn't thinking straight, who was overexerting himself, just trying to get at Chris Eubank. That's exactly what happened. He completely put all poise. He left the poise back in the locker room. Right? He left the IQ back in the locker room. You know, he left the fundamentals back in the locker room, right? That he left all those things back in the locker room and just came out a wild guy who was trying to fight a boxing Chris Eubank. And Chris Eubank, to his own credit, did a great job managing that boxing match. He boxed him and managed it well. I would say about the 4th or 5th round, you saw Chris Eubank start to lose the air in his tires. His tires ran flat. All the movement, it became way more difficult. And at that point, combine that with the fact that they were dealing with an 18-foot ring, square foot ring, he had no choice in many ways, but he did have a choice as to him lasting and weathering the storm. He did have that choice, and he chose death over life, right? He said, you're going to have to kill me. That's the option. If you want me to stop, you're going to have to stop this heart in my chest, because I'm not going down, nor am I going backwards. It was amazing as he bit down on his mouthpiece and fought Conor Benn. And Conor Benn fought back. But Chris Eubanks found himself winning a lot of those mid-range fights, right? Those squabbles, those mid-range squabbles, able to himself, I believe, to have hurt Conor Benn in the fight as well. And ultimately, when it was all said and done, in the last, let's say between the 10th and the 12th round, it was any man's fight. And I don't mean any man's fight as far as the scorecard was concerned, because Conor Benn was clearly behind in the scorecards, but Chris Eubank was this close to being put down. And Conor Benn was this close to being put down. Whoever got put down, you could say, could have changed the whole entire trajectory of that fight. But Chris Eubank just showed so much heart, bit down, and made it to the 12th, and so did Conor Benn. And we went to a decision. And the judges got it right, man. 116-112 across the board, unanimous decision. Chris Eubank Jr. walks away with that win, and glorious win. Conor Benn, of course, brokenhearted about it, devastated, meant everything. You could tell he put everything into that fight, knew how much it meant to him to perform and get a victory for his father, and wasn't able to do that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Chris Eubank Jr. showed him that experience, and the bigger man was going to be an issue for a smaller Conor Benn and a less experienced and honestly just a pedigree below, maybe 2 or 3 pedigrees below Chris Eubank. Bacon and Egg says, I believe it's balanced out. One was small, the other was a bit underweight. Turned out to be a fight for the ages. Great history behind it, and a 67,000 crowd to support that hype. Yeah, I agree. Bacon and Eggs. I agree. And now Conor Benn and Chris Eubanks have to figure out what they're going to do next, as Turki Al-Sheikh has put on the board that a September reunion rematch is something that he's very interested in. The question is Conor Benn going to move with that energy and take that opportunity? I think he would. Should he? Well, let's talk. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it because mostly I feel like he shouldn't, right? But it all depends on what's driving Conor Benn. I think it's clear what Chris Eubank was driving Chris Eubank at this point, 34, getting ready to be 35 years old. It's clear what's driving Chris Eubank. He's here for the prize money. That's what got him in the situation in the first place to be fighting at 160 with a 10-pound rehydration clause. He's there for the money. But obviously that money comes with a cost. Some might say a high cost. Chris Eubank, I couldn't imagine him competing at 160 again. He's clearly, in my personal opinion, outgrown that weight class. Chris Eubank has outgrown that weight class. And he just won the fight. So why would he concede and make a fight again and put himself physically through what he just went through? He's earned the right to call the shots a little bit more in this fight. And I would have to imagine it would be at a minimum a catch weight. Somewhere between 163 to 166, 165 pounds in that range. Conor Benn, on the other half, wants the revenge no matter what, and probably would agree to it just off the strength of the revenge. Not to mention the payday that Turki Al-Sheikh is putting on the table. But you got to think he wasn't able to hurt a depleted Chris Eubanks at 160 who had a rehydration clause on him. What's he going to do with a 165 Chris Eubank, who's not probably going to agree to a rehydration clause? Probably going to come in the ring somewhere between 175 to 180 to 90 to fight. And Conor Benn, with his plans on fighting at 147, I couldn't imagine him getting but so close to 165. He's going to be more so concerned about being in shape and keeping that speed. So where does it end up going? Walaikum salam, BVO Sports. Walaikum salam, man. Rahmatullah barakatuh. Yeah, wa barakatuh. Salute right back at you, man. What's the move? Clearly, I think from my point of view, the fight shouldn't happen. Conor Benn has to make his way back down to 147. And look, I'm reluctant to say 147 because I feel like he's going to have a hard time making that weight. But I'm also under the understanding that 154 is not a problem Conor Benn wants to get involved with. And even if Conor Benn wants to get involved in it, I don't think Eddie Hearn wants no part of 154. He doesn't want Conor Benn going through that hornet's nest of 154. So 147 has to be the weight class, right? He needs to start making his way back down there because he's going to be losing muscle, as well as if you saw Conor Benn in that ring at 160, he was ripped. There wasn't no fat on that dude. There's nothing for him to cut except for muscle. That's going to be a process within itself. The longer he stays at 160 and the longer he goes up, and if he goes beyond 160, the more unlikely he's going to become that he's going to be able to make it down safely and compete at 147 and compete down there with the highest level of competition that 147 has to offer. So at this point, Conor Benn has to, at 28 years old, I believe he is, 28, 29 years old, he has to start weighing out he has to get past the silliness of it all and look at the marathon perspective of this fight, not the race. The race being something personal happening between him and Chris Eubank and that blood war, right? That's going on between the families. But the marathon being his actual career and his ability to challenge and be a champion and be a part of some big fights. Conor Benn built a value for himself one way or the other, via loss, however you want to look at it. He's made himself, I think England should be embracing him a little bit more. He brings that country with him now to the table. He brings money now, pay-per-view. He brings big fights, big shows. He's gotten Turkey's attention. So he has a lot to capitalize on and use, and a lot of leverage that he can use to move his career when he wants to get it moved at. In a loss, in spite of a loss, he was able to do that, right? So the opportunities are there for him, but he has to jump on it. And hanging out at 160 too long, or dare I say going up closer to a 165, I don't think that's something that's going to make sense for Conor Benn in the long run. For Chris Eubanks, as long as the fight is happening on his terms, if he's able to dictate the terms of the fight and put himself in a position to where this weight cut isn't going to be diabolical for him, naturally, I think that fight makes sense outside of a Canelo Alvarez fight. That's going to be his biggest payday. Whatever Turkey's willing to pay for is going to be Chris Eubank's biggest payday, right? So Chris Eubank, I think for him, as long as the terms make sense, I would expect him to take advantage of that rematch. Even though we might not agree with it happening, the money's going to talk. And Chris Eubank's all about his money. Conor Benn, on the other hand, has his career to take into consideration. He has a career to take into consideration because if he stays up there too long, it'll be damn near impossible, in my opinion, for him to make that weight cut in a healthy way to where he doesn't become punchy, where he's not dehydrating himself or putting himself in a situation to where he's not able to make the weight safely and just make him punchy. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say at the end of the day, Ryan Frazier, salute, King. At the end of the day, I think the smart thing for Conor Benn to do for his career is to move on and go down to 147 ASAP, get a tune-up fight, and then line himself up with Mario Barrios or jump right into a Mario Barrios fight. I know the money might be there for him in Turkey, to provide a platform for him and Chris Eubanks to get that rematch, but he has to pay attention to his health and he has to pay attention to the bigger picture, which is 147 pounds that now has Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, obviously Jerome Boots Ennis, Brian Norman Jr. Then the list goes on and on and on and on at the opportunities that would be there for somebody who's bringing that kind of following with him into that space, right? It is what it is. And as far as Chris Eubank is concerned, if they're going to do a rematch, it has to be on his terms and conditions. If Chris Eubank Jr. allows money to push him into another situation like he let money push him into this time around, his health and his well-being is on the line. That man is not made for, nor do I see him competing at 160. Nah. Not again, especially the rehydration clause. I would assume that he would be able to exercise his leverage and push on that and make this fight happen on a platform that he's comfortable with. Bacon Egg says, Mr. I'd like to see Boots versus Benn. That fight would be lit 100%. I think Boots would end Benn. I don't think Benn's ready for that kind of fighter, that kind of puncher that Boots is, combined with the kind of boxer and the pedigree of fighter that he is. I don't think Conor wants to do that, but I'd love to watch it because I know Conor would be a great dancing partner. He's going to make it a fight. He's going to make it a fight. It makes more sense for Conor Benn to go ahead and chase down a title, that WBC title, and at least bring unification to the table for a Boots Ennis or even a Brian Norman Jr. rather than him just show up as a regular challenger. He'd have no leverage, and it wouldn't be something I could see him. I don't think Eddie would allow it to move that way. Eddie's going to move him smarter than that. Salute to Rob Sean Rucker in the building, says plus a monthly membership, and according to Blue, he owns the boxing portion of the zone. We're talking about Turkey right now. Right. It would be action. It would be all actions. That's what we love. For sure, Bacon Eggs. It would be action. But I think that the table needs to be made the right way. I think that Conor should position himself to be part of something greater if he gets in the ring with Boots. And you have to ask yourself, how long does Boots have at 147 as well? I know he's there for the unification as long as it's there, but at the end of the day, the division hasn't been exactly friendly to him. Him getting those unification fights are, I think, going to be easier said than done. This is going to be all pending Brian Norman, of course, doing what he needs to do when he goes to Japan, and of course, pending what Mario Barrios plans on doing as well. If those unification fights aren't on the table for Duran Boots Ennis, then I wouldn't be shocked at all to see him at 154 sooner rather than later. Kalia said, you never answered my question. Yeah, I think it's July 12th, Kalia. I think July 12th is when that Charlo fight is happening. Charlo versus Thomas Lamana, and Caleb Plant versus Renez. I can't remember his name, Armando Renez or something of that nature. I think it's July 12th. Or June. Or is it June? I think it's July. Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I don't think they need the rematch, but I think the money's on the table for Chris Eubank. It's going to be hard to turn it down. He allowed money to put him into a situation where he had to deplete himself to make a fight happen. So you know how money driven he is. Denzel said, put your glasses on and stop squinting. I got my contacts in my eyes. That's why I'm squinting, because my contacts are dried up. I should take my contacts out and put my glasses on, right? Denzel up in here harassing me. Denzel's harassing me, bro. Make sure we're hitting the like button on the way in. Definitely let's make sure we're doing that. So, yeah, Chris Eubank, his options are clear. It's either going to be Canelo, chase the rematch with Benn at the terms that he's going to dictate, or maybe even allow if Turkey's willing to pay out, maybe he might wait out a Hamza Shiraz, Edgar Berlanga fight result and see if he wants to get involved with that, see if Turkey be willing to pay that out for happening. But I think he's going to want to protect the Canelo Alvarez fight if that fight is even realistically on the table. I don't think it is. I think we all know that Terrence Crawford is probably the trajectory, the direction that Canelo Alvarez is going to be going in September, and then we wouldn't expect to see him back until May. So would Chris Eubank stay out of the ring until next May in 2026 to make that fight happen and get that ring rust and be a 36-year-old, 35-year-old, whatever have you, man, in that fight? I don't know. Let me see here. Ryan Fraser says July 12th is that Berlanga Shakur card. Hopefully BBC don't go head to head with that card. Let me just look it up just to make sure, okay? Let me look it up. Let's not play no games about it. Since everybody wants to know when it is, let's look it up. Caleb versus Resendez. When is it going to be? Oh, my bad, guys. I was wrong. It's not July. It's May 31st. It's May 31st. I was way off. Saturday, May 31st. That's when that fight's happening. Wow. Talk about being off. My bad. It is what it is, right? So that's when that card's happening. Eubank versus Charlo would be dope since he's coming back. Yeah, but that fight's not happening, Denzel. Eubank versus Charlo's not happening. Charlo got his eyes on Caleb Plant. The PBC has their eyes on Caleb Plant versus Charlo. Charlo ain't going nowhere near no Eubank. Canelo stops Eubank, just rematch Conor. Yeah, but Canelo's gonna be the bigger bag ultimately, right? But I think it's all in the air. I think it's all an option for Chris Eubank. But I think Eddie Hearn, being who I consider to be an intelligent promoter and manager, is not going to allow that to happen. He's going to make sure he's going to try to talk Conor Benn into going back down to 147 ASAP, putting some fighters together, get that WBC title, get a shot at the WBC title, and ultimately try to unify and make some of the biggest fights in the division, even if it's fighting against a winner of Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney even. Those are big money fights, a lot of opportunities at 147 for Conor Benn, and obviously for Eddie Hearn. So why would he allow that to happen? You want to take advantage of this momentum and make the money, not lose the money, go back and lose to Chris Eubank a second time, which I'm not going to lie to you. I think that's what would happen. I just don't think Conor Benn's able to I don't think he's able to pull that off against Eubank. I think the pedigree is just not there for him. Now, I don't know if he's going to get better in a few months of just getting trained and working in the gym. Is that going to get him to the point to where he's cerebrally there in a cerebral way to compete with Eubank? I don't know. And Eubank at a higher weight, if they were to fight again, it would be like around 163, 165, probably without a rehydration clause. Eubank will be even more of a threat than he was in this fight, depleted at 160 with a 10-pound rehydration clause on him, right? Charlo is one of my favorite boxers. I can't wait to see him fight again for sure. Jamal Charlo, I'm assuming, right? Jamal, since that's the one who's getting ready to fight. It is what it is. So yeah, let's move on. We're not going to be on all night. I want to go ahead and move forward. Let's talk about Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois finally putting it together. It looks like that undisputed heavyweight title is going to be on the line. It's going down. I believe that's July 19th. That fight's happening. Eubanks are bearing great fight, worthy of golden views. Ryan versus Rolly, joke fight of the month. Haney versus Ramirez, good style, interesting fight. Tio versus Barbosa, also a better fight. Yeah, I think Ryan versus Rolly makes sense. I'm all for that fight. And we're going to talk about it in a minute. We are going to talk about it in a minute because I think that fight, I expect Ryan to do what he does in that fight, but I think Rolly's going to test him. I believe he is. And it's going to be a good look for Ryan. It's going to help build up that fight. Salute to Rolling with the Punches. What's good with you, man? Yeah, everything's been well, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for asking. So yeah, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois lined up for July 19th. It's in air. The people who thought that the Derek Chisora situation was going to get in the way of that fight happening, clearly that got handled. Derek Chisora, I don't know what the next fight is going to be for him, but that IBF mandatory sounds cool. It sounds better than it really looks. In all reality, I don't think anything was going to get in the way of this undisputed fight happening. Some people are arguing about Joseph Parker being a legitimate person who should have been in that position. I can see the argument. But I think both those guys had legitimate arguments to be in that fight with Alexander Usyk. And I think what it came down to was what Usyk wanted, right? More than anything else. And I think Usyk wanted to respond to Daniel Dubois' call out that he did when he beat Tyson Fury that second time, understanding the history behind that fight with that controversial low blow that they say Daniel Dubois landed. That fight, kind of, Daniel Dubois had a great year. An opportunity to avenge that fight was something that, Daniel was never going to pass up on. And obviously Alexander Usyk don't like nobody coming there and raining on his party. So he's going to take advantage of that as well. Right? So great face-off today. Daniel Dubois pushes Alexander Usyk. Daniel Dubois is more confident than I think we've ever seen him, right? Ever since that Jarrell Miller fight all the way up to this point now where he's IBF champion, he is confident. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing because that gives him his best opportunity to do something significant in this fight with Alexander Usyk. And I see Denzel Horton saying Usyk stops him again. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Salute Antonio MMA. Salute. Bacon Egg said, made I'm off for now, 12:20 p.m. here. I'm off to get some lunch. Be good. No doubt, Bacon Egg. Salute, family. Salute from England. No doubt. It's going to be interesting to see the build up to this fight and watch Daniel Dubois in these press conferences. I'm not going to lie to you. We've seen Daniel Dubois take on a whole new different chapter in his career now where he's being way more vocal, way more confident. He's talking that shit, right? He's talking that shit at the end of the day. And I'm going to be interested in seeing Daniel Dubois, these press conferences building up to this fight. And even Alexander Usyk seems to be down with the ish, right? He's down with the ish as well. Big in is England. Oh, my bad. Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, you're right. My bad. That's an Australian flag. My apologies, brother. My apologies. I'm not familiar with all the flags that way, but I do see it. He said England, Australia, for sure. Bacon and eggs. It's going to be interesting watching this build up. I think what's going to be more interesting for me to see what they do with Joseph Parker, being that Joseph Parker now has the mandatory of that WBO, which he's always had, but the WBO has made it clear now. They gave Alexander Usyk a bit of a rain check, as Alexander Usyk and his team did go ahead and campaign for the WBO to give them a little grace so that they can make this fight happen with Daniel Dubois. Joseph Parker will be naturally in line to get the winner of that fight. What does Joseph Parker do until that time period, right? Until July 19th. I think Joseph Parker is either going to sit still and wait for his opportunity to fight the winner and become an undisputed champion, or he's going to take some sort of risk managed opponent, right? Or some people might call it cherry pick. I don't know who it would be that they'd put him in a ring with. I mean, there's arguments there for a Derek Chisora fight to be put on the table. Moses Atuma has been looking to get involved in it, but Moses Atuma is nobody's tune-up. Derek Chisora, in all reality, is nobody's tune-up as well. Joseph Parker's also be getting later in age. I could honestly see Joseph Parker probably taking a timeout, lay back, and just waiting on the results of that fight to coordinate that fight. So if he has to wait 6 to 9 months in order for that fight to come together, then so be it, right? That's probably what's going to happen. That's probably what's going to happen with Joseph Parker. He's probably going to wait, and we'll see Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk on July 19th. Moving on to the fight card happening this week, Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero, Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barbosa are now in the city. Grand arrivals happened today. We've seen everybody in the building. Rolly Romero frown turned upside down, or smile turned upside down, very upset, very frustrated, very focused and dialed in. And we're seeing a Ryan Garcia who's more dialed in than we've seen in the longest time, probably since the Luke Campbell days, right? Probably even more dialed in now than then. But we're used to another Ryan Garcia, the antic-driven Garcia, who built up and tore down at the same time the fight between him and Devin Haney last April in New York. And we saw how the ending of that fight happened. We saw all the allegations that came out afterwards as far as the performance enhancement drug usage, and we saw the suspension going for a year. Now making his return to be in the ring with Rolly Romero this weekend on Friday for his comeback fight, as he prepares on the back end of a win against Rolly Romero to rematch Devin Haney, right? And of course, Devin Haney on the same trajectory, fighting against Jose Ramirez, looking to make his return after a year layoff and make a statement against Jose Ramirez. So on the back end of that happening, putting himself in position to go ahead and get his redemption against Ryan Garcia. What are the intangibles going to be in this fight with Ryan and with Devin? There's a couple of them, right? Number one, for me, we're going to be looking at Ryan Garcia in his new space, where I'm going to be interested in seeing what he does with Derek James, right? Derek James being somebody who's a little bit more disciplined and straightforward coach, having that antic-driven Ryan Garcia this time last year. Him coming back around is a good thing for Ryan Garcia, but a Ryan Garcia dialed in, I'm very interested in seeing how Ryan Garcia looks in that ring. We know him to have that left hook, to be the puncher that we've always known him to be and get those stoppages that we've always seen him get. But ultimately, will he be able to take instruction, control the pace of this fight with Romero and set him up and look good doing it, right? It is what it is. And with Devin Haney, we got to see if he's able to take those shots. We got to see how that 144-pound weight does for him. Him not having to cut that weight. As he stated, he's eating burgers and steaks and all types of things in his camp, and he's feeling great. He feels good not having to cut that weight. We got to see what that manifests to and what that turns into, right? We got to pay attention to Devin Haney's ability to compete at this higher weight class and ultimately try to foresee after this this fight against Jose Ramirez what we'll be expecting from him at 147 pounds. Does he slow down? Does he keep the speed? Is he still that war of attrition fighter who stands behind that jab to fight against Jose Ramirez? Can he dominate, get through Jose Ramirez in a way to give us hope and give his fans hope on his ability to compete with a Ryan Garcia who's turned all the way up? Time will tell that story, right? Time will tell that story. Hold on a second here. I'm actually going to throw this link up as well if anybody wants to come up, because your boy is fading to black and I got stuff to do tonight. We got about another hour, not even really, probably like another 40 minutes before I'm going to move to the left. Let me see. Antonio MMA says, I like Daniel Dubois, man. Come back from that. Joe Joyce and Usyk lost and been doing what he did, man. Yeah, man. 100%. 100%. Antonio, 100%. It's going to be interesting to see what all the adjustments that Devin Haney made as well, though, for sure. Definitely looking forward to see Devin Haney's, the addition of Shane Mosley to that camp, all the additions they made to the training, see if he put that weight on well, see if he's able to absorb those shots better, if he's able to deliver those shots, does power start to translate for him at this higher weight class now that he's not depleting himself, and what does that look like against a fighter like Jose Ramirez? It's going to be interesting to see that. And it's going to be interesting to see Ryan Garcia and Derek James' relationship and how that looks like in the ring now without all the antics and all the distractions, all the drinking and smoking and everything that Ryan Garcia was getting involved with, right? We're definitely going to get to see that. Where are we at here? Oh, man. I mean, so much. Ryan Garcia had an interview today as well on Ring Magazine. I thought it was a great interview. Ryan Garcia is really like, I'm not a fan of Ryan Garcia, but I'm not going to lie to you guys. Ryan Garcia is just so dialed in. I'm very intrigued to see what this looks like with Ryan Garcia. Poised, present, confident. You know what I'm saying? What does that look like for Ryan Garcia? We haven't seen him in this space in so long. And really, one might even argue have we ever seen Ryan Garcia in this space before? He's always been such a jovial, playful person, and now he's been just this serious, dialed in fighter. Just does that make it more dangerous, or does that take away some of his edge? Was that edge that he brought to the space, always joking around and always kind of wearing his emotions on his sleeve? Was that what he brought to the ring that made him so different? Or does he become better now that he's able to be more poised, calm, and stoic and able to see things as they're coming in and be mature about it, right? It's going to be very interesting to watch that, man. He's still pushing the idea that he didn't take no performance enhancement drugs, and the involvement of the Haneys with the whole testing system and their relationship with Snack and the relationship with Vada. And, he's still bringing energy to that, to the point to where I'm not too sure. Maybe he does feel that way in real time. Maybe he does feel like there was some underhanded things going on involving the Haneys. But regardless, at this point, what's in front of him has to be more important than what's behind him, right? It has to be. So it'll be interesting to see Ryan kind of tune all that out and be the fighter that I think most of us wanted to see him be when he was in the conversation of the Four Kings, right? It'll be interesting to see him be on that time and see what that looks like in the ring against the best fighters that are out there. Shout out to Mr. Lightning. Salute, 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 King. Oh, man. What else we got going on here, man? Am I back, guys? Something definitely had happened to the system. Can y'all hear me? Am I back? I'd like to think I am. I'm assuming that I am back. Yeah, something happened with that StreamYard. All right, awesome. Thanks, Rolling with the Punches. Rolling with the Punches says, me too. I hope Ryan's still enjoying his training. Not too serious. I'm liking it, but it can backfire too serious. My amplify not fully secure. I like a 60 to 40 serious, but I don't know. We'll see. 60-40? I think it's more than that. I think Rolly's I think this is more like a 70-30 type of situation, right? Let's be honest. Like this ain't the if Ryan Garcia makes this a 60-40, that means it's gonna be a competitive fight. And a competitive fight with Rolly Romero. And I think there's a good chance it will be competitive. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think Rolly will make it competitive until it isn't. Right? Let me see here. Ryan has the best left hook in boxing. Rolly's a sucker for left hooks. It's over very early. That's what it should be, Denzel. I agree. It should be. But will it be? Will it be? Will it be? That's the question. That's the question. And are we going to use a triangle theory? There's a performance against Rolly Romero and a performance against Jose Ramirez. Let us know what to expect in a fight between Ryan and Devin. I don't know. Ray Davis in the building. Salute, Ray. He said, stop sleeping on Rolly. Upset coming. Hey, man. I hear you, brother. I hear you. Rolly hot trash, truck juice, Aki. No triangle theories. Exactly, Denzel, right? Who's got the better fighter in front of him? I think Devin does, right? And Jose Ramirez. So what Ryan's able to do against a Rolly Romero who's going to be jumping into left hooks and getting hit with shots because his pedigree and his IQ is under the magnifying glass. What does that mean, right? I think Devin Haney's performance against Jose Ramirez is going to be the more significant performance and a more telling performance. Salute to Nick J. Say, I loved it. I loved it. My bad. I was way behind. Yeah. What did you love? The fight? Because yeah, you must have been way behind because I don't know what you loved. If this fight goes past 7, it's going to be trouble for Ryan. I don't know. Rolly's an awkward fighter. He can make this fight more complicated. He can have Ryan. We got to see who Rolly's going to be. You know, Rolly had an interview today when he said was significant. He said everybody talks about Ryan Garcia's left hook and the power he brings, but nobody's talking about my right hook or my left hook or the power that I bring or the fact that Gervonta Tank Davis said I'm the hardest puncher he's ever been in the ring with. What about those threats that Ryan has to be aware of? What does Ryan have to be aware of from Rolly Romero? We all know what Rolly has to be aware of from Ryan and what Ryan brings to the table, but are we taking into consideration what Rolly actually brings to the table in real time? Oh, no doubt, Nick J, for sure. That entrance, that Chris Eubank entrance was one for the ages. I don't know if I've seen one as good in recent times, at least. Yeah, that was one of the best entrances I've seen. That was definitely one of the best entrances I've ever seen. It was emotion. It pushed emotion out of you. Denzel Horton said, I just want to see Devin get back to boxing circles around these dudes. He tried too hard for too long to be exciting, chasing Tank. Yeah, I agree, Denzel. I think that's what a lot of us would like to see. I definitely would like to see Devin get back to being Devin. You know, that's what Devin needs to do. Devin knows and should know. If he doesn't know, somebody needs to tell him who he actually is. He's created and branded himself for being a certain kind of fighter. And that kind of fighter that he is has always been difficult for any other fighter to get in the ring with. He has to double down on that and be who he's supposed to be himself. Ray Davis said Chris Senior was, like I said, trying to play both sides. Yeah, I said it. I spoke on it a little bit earlier, Ray. I did speak on a little bit earlier about your perspective on Chris Eubank Senior's position in this whole entire build-up for this fight and what he would do the night of the fight. Definitely gave you your respect for seeing that. I don't know if it was a setup, if it was upfront, if it was premeditated, as I think you try to kind of put it together, like, you know, this was part of the marketing plan. But I definitely feel like Chris Eubank, you were right that Senior wasn't going to be able to stay away from this event. He really wasn't. Eric J says he did that one fight, box Regis head off just the fight before. Yeah, Eric, he really did. Devin really showed what he can do. But once again, Jose Ramirez, I would think is a higher caliber. I don't know. Is Jose Ramirez a better fight than Regis Prograis? Is he a better fighter, guys? What do you guys think? Mr. Big Play Bray said, ooh. I'm talking about from Ryan's standpoint of thinking it's going to be an easy night when two boxers know each other. It's always going to be interesting. Yeah, that's true too. Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia have that relationship. They have that sparring session that they shared, but is that even relevant at this point? I believe Ryan Garcia was 15, 16 around that time. Now he's in his late 20s. That was a long time ago. They're not the same fighters, right? It is what it is. I put the link out there for anybody who wants to hit the link up, come up and build. Eric J, that's a good question, Clay. I would say Jose a little better than Regis. Today I would say that, but is Jose Ramirez a better fighter than Regis was the night he fought against Devin Haney? Is he? Is Jose Ramirez better today than what Regis Prograis was on the night he fought Devin Haney? I don't know. Mr. Lightning says Devin will get things together enough to make the difference, but Rolly won't be able to handle Ryan Garcia. I think if the fight is I think Ryan's job is going to be to slow this fight down and make it a boxing match and let Rolly Romero walk into something real bad, setting traps. I think if they end up fighting head up, if they have a fight, it turns into a fight, it leans more and more towards Rolly. Rolly's ability to bring him and pull him into a fight is where his advantage is at. That's his best opportunity to do something significant in this fight. Ray said, amen. The board fighters will show us if he's a fluke or a two-division champ. 100%. 100%. For sure. For sure. Guys, make sure we're hitting the like buttons as we're coming into the building. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take an opportunity to go ahead and do that. I apologize for my energy, guys. I am really like that, dead tired. It's been a long day for me. It's so funny because once you sit down after you've been moving around all day long, you find out you're really tired, right? You try to slow down and all of a sudden you figure it out like, boom, the engine revs down. Rolling with the punches says, I don't know, Regis at his best was dangerous. Let me see here. Regis at his best was dangerous. Good. Ramirez has that engine. Shake my head. Shoot, I don't know. Depending on the weight, I might have to say Regis, but he's still a little quicker with pop too. It would be lit regardless. Yeah, rolling with the punches. For sure. Was the link for you, Ray? Why didn't you click it? Was the link for you, Ray? Why didn't you click it? Yeah, I put the link there for anybody. Ray could definitely hit the link. I think Ray's at work, ain't he? Ain't you at work, Ray? Or getting ready to go to work? I don't know. But the link's there for whoever wants to hit it, or I'll be getting off soon. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta get ready to travel tomorrow. Got some laundry to get done. Get some stuff together, get my way on the road tomorrow. So if you're gonna hit the link, the clock is ticking for you. The clock is definitely ticking for you. Make sure you hit that like button, guys. Make sure you hit that like button. I'm exhausted, homie. I'm exhausted. Yeah, link for everyone, Ray. You're right. Yep. Links for everyone. For sure. That's what I thought, Ray. Yeah, that's what I figured. It is what it is, man. Hold on, let me check something here. Boom. Boom. It's about that time. Gone over the fights. I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to get ready to move on. Ryan's still thinking about because he's still on his mind. He wants to get back. Ryan's still thinking about because it's still on his mind. He wants some get back. You talking about the sparring between him and Rolly? I don't know, man. Is he? I don't know. Is he thinking about it like that? So Ryan seems to be at peace, man, and I don't know if it's authentic or not, but Ryan doesn't seem to be bothered too much anything more than boxing right now. What's up, Ray? How you doing, man?
What up, Clay? I don't know if I sound good. I'm in a garage, man. I'm about to go in now. Freaking call me out. But nah, I wanted to tap in and say what's up to the people'izations up in the building, first of all and foremost. Shout out to you for hosting this late event. But most importantly, Clay, when we talk about Jose Ramirez versus Regis Prograde, you have to remember during that time when they were both champions in the division, um, don't know if I said Rolly. I didn't even say Rolly. I mean Jose Ramirez. But anyway, regardless, Jose was avoiding Regis at some point. Man, he thought he was too dangerous for him as a fighter. That's why you didn't see the unification between them. So a lot of people will probably stick otherwise. But De La Hoya moves his fighters weird, bro. When he sees somebody that's a challenge for his fighters, he moved them weirdly. He thought Josh Taylor would be the easiest task, and that's the reason why they had that fight instead of the Regis fight going forward. But yeah, I think you'll see pretty much the same thing. I think Jose Ramirez has just aged. He looks good. Don't get me wrong. But I think what's going to happen is if he doesn't get to Devin early, he's going to burn out, and you're going to see Devin take control of this fight, and you're going to see a similar fight to what he did with Regis. If he does happen to get to Devin early, then it might be a long night for Dev, but I doubt it. I just don't see that happening. I think Devin's not having to rehydrate and all those things. We might see a different Dev that we all seen together. We might see Dev from 2019 Dev. So don't be surprised if you see a stoppage or anything that's unexpected with Devin Haney in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dev has an opportunity to put on a very similar performance to what he did with Regis. I think he's completely going to be hydrated and it shouldn't be a bad weight cut. He's talking about eating steaks and hamburgers and things of that nature during this camp. He made some additions too. I think that Shane Mosley addition is going to be significant. And I think we're going to see him sit on his punches still. I think we're still going to see him sit on his punches a little bit in this fight. He's not just going to be moving around defensive, standing exclusively behind the jab without following nothing up. I think it's not far-fetched at all that we'll see him hurt Ramirez bad in this fight. I don't know about stop him, but maybe stop him too. Who knows? What do you think of the chance? So you think there's a chance we might see him get stopped?
Yeah, I think I just think after seeing the fight that Ramirez had with Barbosa last fight, he started off strong. He was in the fight, and then it just got it just got a little out of hand for him. I see the same thing continuing to happen. I think it'll get taken out of place for him, and he'll find himself either looking to quit or just looking to retire. Man, it just doesn't look like this is the right fighter for him. But a great comeback fight for Devin. But it can go both ways. You know what I mean? I'm not going to write him off that way. I just see the fight happening that way. Ramirez could definitely hit Devin with something that, we all seen him get hit with, which is that left hook. It wasn't just Ryan that hit him with it. Loma hit him with it from different angles. So if that happens, there's just two endings to this story, this chapter. But I think Devin just shows resilience, and I think that we'll see Devin a little stronger, less weight drain, and more with more power in this fight. I think we might see a different fighter of recent times, actually.
I'm about to say recent times, right? Yeah. What's good, Frequent?
Yes,
What's
sir.
good? What's good with you, family?
Salute, fellas. What's going on?
Man, we up here.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Yo, I got a question for y'all though.
What's up?
If Rolly Romero beats Ryan Garcia, do we still get the Devin versus Ryan fight?
Not immediately.
I think so.
I don't think it would happen immediately. You don't think they would want to?
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
My bad.
Because I know if Devin lose, Ryan getting out of that fight, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
Rightfully
rightfully
trying to fight Boots or something.
Of course.
Yeah, rightfully so at this point.
Yeah,
Yep. Right? You got Turkey Al-Sheikh who's putting the money up. Yo, we're not stopping the train for nobody. If you ain't ready, you ain't ready.
Exactly. And not to mention, you got Barrio sitting right there with a belt, and the WBC just pulled Devin's rank. So we might not even get that fight right away either if they both win. We know Barrios is sitting on something, and Barrios either going to move up. We're hearing rumors of him fighting Earl and Manny. I more believe Earl than Manny. I think he moves up out of the division. He drops the belt. I think I thought this fight would be the unification fight, or the fight that would be the eliminator, and Devin's next fight would be for the title. But we could see Barrios accepting Devin as the next fight in Dallas. We'll never know.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how Barrios moves, because he's definitely being moved and handled in a certain way. Seems like he's under protection at times, but at the end of the day, what it adds up to is he doesn't seem available to make the biggest fights. He's making the more nostalgic boutique fights, but not the significant fights, right? He's not fighting any real contenders that Abel Ramos almost made that boy shit in his shorts, right? Mr. Lightning said, I heard the fight is locked in, even if one of them lose, but they're probably not going to lose anyhow. Yeah, listen, if one of them lose, going to take away.
We heard that.
Yeah.
Hey, the reason I asked the question is because Devin in that interview said that he signed a 2-fight deal to fight Ryan. So I was wondering if that just messed the bag all the way up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll get one fight. If one of them lose, I think we get one fight, not two. I think that'll eliminate the second fight possibility, due to the fact that unless like Devin dominates Ryan in that fight, then you'll get another fight. But as far as a third fight, I don't see an option. If one of them lose, it just doesn't make sense in business for the sport. Just exciting for the fans, but if one of them lose to one of these opponents, it's not going to be worthy of a second fight, in my opinion. But who knows? All right, fellas, I'm heading back in. I got to get to work. Y'all hear the door. I'll catch y'all later. Assalamu alaikum. I'll catch you in the morning, man. For real.
Sure,
all right, man. I'm in the chat. Later.
Later.
Yeah, I ain't gonna hold you either, Clay. You look like you tired, Aki.
Listen, man, it's in one of those. It's so funny because, I'm on that OMAD shit where I only eat like once a day.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like, hey, I'm super energized, right? Because I ain't, I'm fasted. And then I come home, sit down, and I eat that big dinner bar. Boom, that thing just hits the itis is crazy. Combined with the fact that you in real life you think you energized, but you're really tired. You like the Walking Dead. You don't know it. You dead, right? So you put some food in your mouth and your body start to be like, you need to chill. And then before you know it, you're like, damn, I didn't know it was like that. Because I put this thumbnail earlier today when I was feeling myself. I was like, yeah, I'm going up tonight. Salute JJ Short too in the building. Salute. Yeah, man. Look, man, I'm liking what I'm telling you guys right now. I'm liking what I see in Ryan Garcia. You know what I mean? Am I ready to be a fan of Ryan Garcia? I ain't no fan of nobody like that. So if I'm a fan of anybody, it's gonna be Terrence, but I'm not even a fan of him like that, to be honest. But Ryan's attitude, I want to see this Ryan in the ring with Devin. I want to see this Ryan in the ring with Boot Shoot. I want to see this Ryan in the ring with a bunch of fighters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to see what that looks like. I ain't gonna lie. I want to see what that looks like. So
he better stay away from Boots, man.
Hey, listen, brothers, nobody's safe. Nobody's safe, man. He can get it. Everybody can get it, bro. He make the weight. He checking the boxing and making the weight, bro. It is what it is. It is what it is. I think it'll be a good fight. You know what I mean? I think it'll bring the best out of Boots too. I think Boots will take advantage of that. That's a big money for a money move for Boots too as well, right? So, and I don't think there's no secret as to what's happening here between the WBA right now. Who WBA made a lot of moves in the past week. One of them being putting that WBA title, that regular title, up for grabs between Rolly and Ryan. So you think that's by accident? Now that Boots has just become the WBA/IBF unified champion? I think not. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's interest in that fight getting put together. And, Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia is one part of the equation. And even if Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia fight before that fight could be made, Boots against either one of those guys for a unification title fight is a big money fight for him. That entices Boots to stay at 147 a little longer. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Yeah, right. He'll mop it up a little bit more, make some more money, and we get to watch it. So, yeah, man, I think Ryan Garcia makes the division interesting. I think the addition of all of them make the division interesting. The addition of Ryan T.O. and Devin makes the division interesting.
Well, what about Conor Benn? You think is he coming back down to 147 or he's staying up at 154?
Yeah,
He's gonna go to 154.
Right. I was talking about that a little earlier, right? And I was saying, listen, man, Conor has the decisions to make, right? Like, you know, whether people want to admit it or not, he became an even bigger star Saturday night, right? Even though he lost. Obviously there's going to be money there for him to fight Chris Eubank in a rematch, but the question is, if he plans on coming back to 147, he needs to do it sooner rather than later. The longer he hangs out there at 160, the more difficult it's going to be for him to make that cut back down to 147. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I asked that. I was thinking that, you know, since he went up there, he probably not going to fare well coming back down, you know, having to cut that weight. And then, yeah, it's complicated. And have to fight Boots. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, you know, having to come down and then fight Boots.
Right. And he don't want no part to 154. So if he come down, he got to go down to 160. I'm be real with you. I think he got a better chance at 160 than fighting at 154. You feel me? Like,
yeah,
154 is crazy. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Yo, he gonna get laid down bad at 154. So it's either 147 or stay at 160. I can't see him even competing at 160, to be honest with you. But at least at 160, you know, he has some speed, something he can, you know, he has some athleticism that he could tap into, kind of like try to figure out a way to get in these fights and do something. But 154, they got the speed and the power. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be bad for him. 147, we got to see if he can make the weight cut. But if he hangs out at 147 until, I think Turkey Al-Sheikh said September. So if he hangs out at 154, 150, or 160, whatever it is, until September, lose that fight, then what? Make his way back to 147 for early 2026 or the end of 2025?
I don't see him coming back down to 147 if he stay up there for another fight. Because, you know, he basically getting acclimated to the division.
Right. And he's a little dude. You know what I mean? So he doesn't even fit into the 160-pound conversation. You don't fit in front of no Janabek or no Carlos. Maybe Carlos Adames to a degree, but no, not even Carlos Adames. You know what I mean? You don't stand up to a lot of people up there at 160. He's going to be in trouble up there.
I think he belong at 154, but like you said, it don't look like he got a chance. But that's where he belong at, I think, man. He need to go to 154 and go ahead and get knocked out.
Ray
yeah,
Davis
but I'm gonna tap out though, man.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
We'll build later, man. Ray Davis said the question is, Conor will be better at 154. Will Conor be better at 154? He capable of getting a belt, and 147 he comes in heavy after two fights. 150, 154, he's passed the division up. On 150, 154, he's passed the division up. I don't think Conor Benn's going to compete well at 154, Ray. I ain't going to lie to you. I don't think he got nothing for nobody at 154. I'll be honest with you. I don't see who he's going to run it with at 154. I don't. And he's got to be in the big fights. 147, he can compete with Mario Barrios. I'll be honest with you. He'll fight a Brian Norman Jr., but he'll probably end up walking into something bad and getting sat in his pockets crazy from Brian Norman Jr. Xander Zayas. You know what I mean? If Jalil Hackett goes up to 154. I'll be real with you. I think that Conor Benn got exposed a little bit Saturday night. His IQ just ain't there. He has to get some poise about him and get some defensive, some strategy about him that makes sense at this high level of competition. It's going to be real complicated to see Conor Benn make something of himself in these divisions, especially getting in the ring, like I said, a Jerome Boots Ennis or even a Brian Norman. It's going to be difficult for him, to say the least. It is what it is. Anyway, guys, look, man, I appreciate everybody coming to the building. Make sure you hit the like button if you just walked in here, man. I appreciate you, man. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel. We're building for a bit. This was a quick pop-up night show, hour and a half type of energy. Guys, I'll be in the city this coming week. heading out there tomorrow. We'll be there all week. The lives, we got to kind of play it by ear how we're going to handle the lives. Me and Blue should be doing a live together as well. Yeah, man. Catch us there. Catch me on the show. I'm going to try to do a morning show probably Wednesday. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Maybe I might do something while I'm driving, heading up the road. Maybe I might pop up a live and talk a little boxing in the morning when I'm a little bit more energized. I appreciate everybody showing up this evening. Denzel said best thing Conor can do for himself is stay in Britain, stay away from the world level competition. And anyway, wow. I'm not even mad at you, Denzel. I know you be trolling a lot of times, but you might have a point, man. But the money, I don't know. You might be right. You might be right. I think he really, really has some work to do in the gym. I don't know if he's acknowledging that or if his team is acknowledging that, but he's not ready for world level competition, man. He's not ready for it. He's not ready for it. It is what it is, man. Salute to everybody in the building. Hit the like button before you leave. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't done yet. I appreciate all you guys, man. It's your boy Rain. It's the ATP Combat Media Show. You know how we carry it. At this point, I'm definitely out, right? Peace.